Yo! So before I start this video today, a lot of people asked me for a good reason, did I change the name of the channel? And the answer is yes, I did. It's no longer Tripping Magic. From now on, the channel is BenREAL. That's because Tripping Magic is going to be finished in 3 months and I want to keep on uploading. So BenREAL is my brand and it's going to keep on being alive. So do you remember the video I did about continuity? Okay, Google. Remind me to make a video about Gestalt principles.
When do you want to be reminded?
A month from now. So I took the time to make it, and there's also going to be a part B. I want to make this video about Gestalt because I think beyond the fact that Gestalt is cool for whoever creates or likes art, it's really interesting for understanding the thought patterns we humans have. So before I dive into it, what the f is Gestalt? So the story of Gestalt starts with a guy called Max Wertheimer. He took participants, sat them down, and showed them a flash on the right and a flash on the left, but really fast. What he found out is that their consciousness changed the experience to make it seem like it was one continuous light moving from one side to another. What was so exciting about this experiment is that it found out that our consciousness is what's responsible for our experiences. Or in other words, our consciousness dictates what our sensory input will be. So actually, our consciousness builds patterns and ways of thinking in order to interpret our reality. Does it sound familiar? This experiment laid the bricks to what two of Wertheimer's students developed under the name Gestalt. Basically what Gestalt says is that you have to refer to the whole experience instead of the individual ingredients. Or in simpler words, the whole is different than the sum of its parts. So Gestalt has 7 principles. I'm going to go through them really quickly because later on I'm going to go in depth on each and every one. Proximity. Close objects are seen as related to each other. Figure ground. The background can become the frame and by that the figure, just like my logo. Imagination. We tend to create an imaginary frame so that it will be easier to process information through it. Closure. We tend to fill in the gap when we have lacking information. Simplicity. We tend to process information to the simplest form possible, so it will be easier to use it in the future. Dissonance. When we are in a conflict between two contrasting pieces of information, we tend to give meaning to the one that will make our conflict solve more easily. Continuity. We tend to look out for patterns of continuity because it's easier to process. Now that we're after the hard part, let's talk about it for a second. Why did I choose to talk about Gestalt principles? I think these principles are a result of years of research, and in fact, it's a list of heuristics, or in other words, assumptions. And you all know how much I like assumptions. So basically you now have a list of 7 assumptions. And if you go by my theory saying that magic is breaking assumptions, then you can take each and every one of these assumptions and break it, and you get an example for a piece of magic. Now I already took these and I translated them into magic tricks. Not all of them into specific tricks, but what I did is this. So these are the principles. I divided them into 2 groups because I think these 4 are principles that you can directly apply to your practical magic, and that's what I want to talk about today. So I translated them into practical pieces of magic. The other group, on the other hand, is more about philosophy of magic or theory of magic. It's the way I think routines should be built and the way I think you should write your own routines. It's what the audience needs to think and remember and how you want them to go through your magic. We're gonna talk about the other one someday in the future. So as I said, what we're gonna focus on today is the magic group. Now the magic group consists of 4 principles. You have proximity, figure ground, closure, and my favorite of all, continuity. So I'm not a big fan of tutorials or like explaining and revealing magic tricks on the internet but I did my best to find the pieces of magic that both apply to these principles, that I can use them to talk about these principles, but also I would feel comfortable revealing and teaching you how they're done. So let's start with my favorite, continuity. We have the YouTube logo over here. I will sign my name, my signature over here, and I will take this out. Snap my fingers, and magically enough, the YouTube symbol had become a subscribe button. If it says subscribe, then you have to. It's not me, it's the rules of the game. So this trick utilizes a pack of business cards, and the gimmick is actually a piece of half of business card with a rubber band that holds onto the crease where it's cut. Now this is a very famous principle, it's very known, it's not secretive that much. Now what's interesting is why our brains interpret this as a whole business card and not as a half. So at the beginning I had the subscribe card inside, okay? And on top of that I had my YouTube logo. And this is not because of the rubber band, it's because we will not assume that it might be a different half. It's because our brain chooses the path of least resistance when it comes to processing new information. Now, the idea of continuity has been around for years, and magicians have been utilizing it since the dawn of magic. I think what's interesting about it, and if you've seen my video about continuity, I'll link it down below, then you know why and how it works. What is interesting is where in our lives are we fooled by this heuristic. Now, if you want a visual representation, look at this. It looks like one line with a wiggly line on top, but you wouldn't imagine that it's two lines, one on top of another, or all these shapes next to each other. I mean, your mind easily makes it continuously because it's easier to process. Okay, next principle. So use a pen and a bill. No. As I'm editing this, I come to notice this is way too long for a one video. So I'm sorry to be a bad, filthy liar, but I'm gonna stop this video here. If you want to see the second part, then click over here somewhere. And see you next time, I guess. Bye.